I will never forget the question that shattered my family on Christmas night. My grandfather looked across the dinner table and asked where the house he had purchased for me was. I stared at him in confusion because I had never owned a house. I was living in a small apartment with a leaking ceiling, struggling to pay rent while working long hours. The moment I told him the truth, my mother dropped her wine glass and my father stopped smiling. That was when I realized my parents had been keeping something hidden from both of us. My name is Emily Carter, and Christmas at my parents' house had always been about appearances. Everything looked perfect, from the decorations to my mother's expensive dress, but I never felt like I belonged. That year everything changed when Grandpa Walter walked through the door after 10 years away. My parents had always told me he wanted nothing to do with us. Yet when he saw me, he pulled me into a hug and called me his girl. My parents looked terrified, and I had no idea why. During dinner, Grandpa sat beside me and asked if I was still living in the house he had bought for me 3 years earlier. I told him I had never received a house. I lived in a cheap apartment behind a laundromat. Grandpa slowly turned toward my parents and asked where the $400,000 he had sent them had gone. My mother tried to interrupt, but Grandpa demanded the truth. He explained that the money had been sent specifically to buy me a home, and my parents had told him I was already living there. The next morning, Grandpa came to my apartment. His face changed when he saw the broken heater, mold, leaking ceiling, and tiny space where I worked. I finally admitted that I had worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, and repaired things myself because I thought my parents wanted me to learn responsibility. Grandpa hugged me and told me I had never deserved a life of struggle. Then he promised we would find out exactly what they had done. At his lawyer's office, the truth came out. The $400,000 had not been used for my home. Nearly $190,000 had gone toward a lake house in Clearwater Bend. More money had been spent on jewelry, luxury vacations, spa treatments, and expensive renovations. My father claimed they planned to give me the property someday, but the documents proved the money had been used for their own lifestyle. I finally confronted them. I told my father that while I was working 2 jobs and living in a terrible apartment, they were enjoying a lake house purchased with money meant for my future. My mother cried, saying they thought I was irresponsible, but I knew the truth. I had survived without them while they convinced my grandfather that everything was fine. Then Grandpa revealed something even bigger. He had changed his will. His primary beneficiaries were now me and my aunt, Melissa. My parents would receive nothing. His lawyer also revealed that his estate was worth more than $900 million. My father exploded, demanding how Grandpa could choose me over his own son. Grandpa simply told him that family was not an excuse for betrayal. Then came the final shock. Grandpa ordered the Clearwater Bend Lake house transferred into my name. If my parents refused, he was prepared to pursue legal action for fraud and misuse of the money. They had no choice. 1 week later, I received the keys. I expected to feel victorious when I entered the lake house, but instead I cried. I remembered every night in that tiny apartment, every meal I skipped, and every time I told myself I did not deserve anything better. Grandpa squeezed my hand and told me the house was not why I deserved a good life. I deserved it because of who I was. I turned the lake house into my home and created a small design studio. I began helping people who were struggling, offering affordable design work and volunteering with a housing organization. Slowly, I stopped seeing myself as the girl who had been left behind and started seeing myself as someone capable of building a meaningful life. 2 months later, Grandpa became seriously ill. I visited him every day until he passed away. Before the end, he held my hand and told me his greatest legacy was not his company or his money. It was me. I promised him I would make something good from everything he had given me. 1 year later, I stood beside the lake on Christmas Eve, watching snow fall outside my window. I placed Grandpa's favorite mug beside the fireplace and whispered that I was okay. For the first time, Christmas did not feel painful. It felt peaceful. My parents had tried to take my future from me, but their betrayal exposed the truth and led me to the life I was always meant to have. Grandpa did not simply give me a house. He gave me back my confidence, my future, and the belief that I deserved to be loved. And that was worth far more than any fortune.